Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Tuesday. We are live from downtown Miami. And tonight I came across an interesting article that states that single-family home rentals are increasing at its fastest pace in history, far outpacing regular apartment rentals. And I think one of the biggest things about this is ever since the pandemic, a lot of people realize that they don't really want to live on top of one another. And especially if you have a family, 9 times out of 10, you're going to want your own space. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and I will also leave it in the description of this video for anybody who's watching the replay. But check out this article from CNBC that states single-family home rentals are increasing at its highest rate ever, especially in states like Florida, more specifically Miami, Florida, and even states like Arizona. So we'll talk about that tonight. Also, we have the FOMC meeting tomorrow where we are going to find out if the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates. So we'll talk about that more tonight on the stream. Short stream, only about an hour, but we'll talk about it nonetheless. Santa Monica Rodriguez is here. Otto is here. Good to see you, Otto. Community Canner says, good evening all. Aldo Gomez is here, says, hey. The one and only Vinny Castellano. Good to see you, Vinny, from Staten Island. I hope everybody had a great Tuesday. I see Buy the Book. Says, hey, Tom. Good to see you, Buy the Book. Dante Rose is here. The ABX girl is here. Says hi. Kev Bear says hi. Welcome. Michelle Henry and Joey. So everybody, if you look at the link I just put in the description of this video, it says single-family rent prices are soaring, led by homes in the Sun Belt. And it's interesting because the house that I just closed on about 4 months ago, I oftentimes have people actually coming and knocking on my door asking if I'd be willing to rent out my house. I mean, the demand is just so crazy. And I think this is spurred mainly because there's such little supply on the market. You know, if you look in your local market, whether really wherever you are, it doesn't matter if you're in the Northeast, it doesn't matter if you're in the Sun Belt, chances are the supply of single-family homes are really low. People don't want to move during a global pandemic. Usually, multiple offers are on a single house. People are getting into bidding wars. And I think that's also driving up the prices of rents for single-family homes as well. Hey, I see War Walker is here. What's up, War Walker? Good to see you. Alan Wilson says, good evening, everybody. Good to see you, Alan. Miss Green is here, says, hey, all. And Ganius says, hey, Tom. Sebastian says, hi. Roy S., the one and only, says, hey, Tom. Wishing everybody well on this Tuesday. Good to see you. The one and only War Walker from the 305 and Joey. Welcome, welcome. Solo 401 is here. Good to see you, Solo. So it's going to be a very short stream tonight, only walking around for about an hour. I do have to be up very early. I have a couple meetings with some clients, but we will talk about if the Fed's going to raise rates. I think the Fed will raise rates. Today was a positive day in the market, but don't be fooled to rush right back in the market just because of one green day. You know, we need multiple days of follow through. So I think that the market could bounce back to the moving averages, which is the 50, the 20-day moving average, or the 200, and then roll back over. So let's wait for a follow through day. Let's keep our eye on it. But consensus from whatever I'm hearing is that we may see a 25 basis point rate hike for tomorrow. Hey, Michelle says the prices of houses around where I live are high, out of control. So Michelle, where is that, if you don't mind us asking? Sally is here, says, hey, Tom. Good to see you, Sally. Samantha J says, hey, Tom and everybody. Good to see you, Samantha J. FredEx is working late, not home yet. Please stand still until I get home. So if you're home within the next hour, we'll probably still be on, but it is going to be a shorter stream tonight. But it's good to see you, Fred X and Mike C. I see Samantha J. Mike says short stream equals 2.5 hours. I'll try to keep it short, I promise. I did set an alarm on my phone because I do need to get the bus. Michelle Henry says Clarksville, Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee has been another really, really hot housing market. I think a lot of people really want more space. So Vinny Castellanos is sending you good vibes. Good to see you, Vinny. Welcome. So just to give you guys some perspective, here in Miami-Dade, depending on where you are, a single family home, you could probably rent it out for close to $2,500 a month, which is really crazy, especially judging by the fact your mortgage payment is probably only going to be around $1,500. So the cash flow is really, really good on a single family home. And I think this is why we're seeing actual real estate investment trusts or institutional investors come into local housing markets and actually start buying single family homes, not to live in, but to rent them out to all of us. Hey, the ABX girl says storms is supposed to hit in Miami. Is that tonight, the ABX girl? Hopefully it's not going to hit tonight. Dino is here, says good evening, Tom. Hey, good to see you, Dino. Welcome. Michelle Henry says you're right. Mike C says, Tom, all the low tax states have hot housing markets. Yeah, I think Tennessee is another one of those states that doesn't have a state income tax. Matthew G, good to see you. Matt G says, good evening, Tom. Matt and Lizzie checking in for the stream. Good to see you guys. I believe there is a Miami Heat game tonight. So hopefully we will conclude the stream before we have a wave of people getting out of the game. But it's good to see everybody. Mike is here. Says, hi, Tom, from Elmont, New York. Waiting to unload. Yeah, Mike is always unloading the tractor trailer every time we're streaming. So appreciate the work you do. Dino says, Tom, I believe Tennessee, Florida, Texas are the only states without, are the only states in the South without state income tax. Interesting. Good to see you, Dino from New Jersey. Hey, the Charlie Roll is here. Says hello, paranormal witness girl. Welcome, welcome. Matthew G says, especially the property taxes in northern Westchester are insane. Well, you're right about that. You are definitely right about that. Just to give you some perspective, I think we've talked about this before. You know, I was actually looking to buy my first investment property on Long Island, New York, but the property I was looking at was going to come with a $12,000 property tax bill. And that's just something I can't justify. I think that's really egregious. But here's the thing. I mean, even if you're buying in markets like Texas tends to have pretty high property taxes too. But at least some of the state and local are not high, if not even existent at all. Yeah. Hey, Alan Wilson says, did you see the Saudis are considering accepting Chinese? Yes. So I did hear about that, Alan Wilson. So that is a big piece of news coming out of China, and that is not good for the US dollar. It seems like, and I don't really want to get too political, but you guys let me know what you think. It seems like the world is really dumping on the United States. It doesn't seem like we are as respected as we once were, because obviously, you know, oil has always been priced in US dollars, you know, the petrodollar. But now Saudi Arabia and China are thinking about pricing it in Chinese local currency, which is not good. What are your thoughts on that, everybody? Sharon is here. Says, good Tuesday evening to you, Tom. How are you, Sharon? Good to see you. Hey, Beijing Charlie is here. Good to see you. Community Canners. Maria says, good evening from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Welcome. Andy S says, no, best days ahead. I'm always optimistic, Andy. It's good to see you, my friend. Hope you're having a good one. Matthew G says, Tom, my parents pay $20,000 a year for a 2,000 square foot and quarter-acre lot for property taxes. That's insane. Albany Walking Show. So 58 degrees in New York City. Good to see you. Dino says, Tom, no longer in New Jersey now. In a Midwest state with lower taxes and better climate. Very cool, Dino. That is awesome. So that's another thing. I think that's one of the things that really perplexes me, because Long Island, New York has a crazy hot housing market, but people are willing to pay these high property taxes, which is beyond me. You know, if you buy a property on Long Island for like $650,000 to $700,000, chances are, depending on what local town you're in, if you're in Seaford, Massapequa, Bethpage, you're probably going to pay anywhere between $12,000 $116,000 a year in property taxes. And even if you're collecting rent rolls, I mean, your margins are going to be pretty slim. So XOXX Bob says, good evening. Remember, the Chinese also own a lot of US debt. Yeah, so XOXX Bob, you're right. We were talking about that briefly, and I think it was you who brought it up. It was a very good point. The Chinese essentially subsidize the way we live, right? Because we send them paper and they send us goods and services. So it's going to be interesting to see how this deal works out with Saudi Arabia and China to move away from the petrodollar and start pricing oil in something other than US dollars. I see Ruby Falcone is here. Good to see you, Ruby. Welcome. Maggie says, a lot of the times the property taxes can price you out of an affordable mortgage. Agreed on that. So my property taxes, and I think I've told everybody before, are right around $4,300, which is still pretty expensive in my opinion. Especially if you own a home free and clear. I don't think I should have to pay anybody property taxes, but I'll digress on that. But even that's expensive. Parts of Texas has very high property taxes as well. But in that CNBC article that I linked in the description, and I'll also put it in the chat, one of the biggest trends right now that we're seeing in the real estate market is we know that rents are going up for apartments like these. But the rental incomes are going up the fastest in single family homes. That's because a lot of people are looking to buy a single family home, first time home buyers, or even for investment. So if they can't buy it, they'd rather rent in a single family home, provide them more space, and then hopefully they can do something what's called a rent to own situation. But let me drop it in the chat for everybody. I think it's important to read it, especially if you live in one of these Sunbelt states, because I think if you were a landlord, you will probably have maybe a little bit of pricing power for your properties. XOXX Bob says, do you do the homestead exemption yet? I think it will take into effect next year. I think I just missed it for this year. William says, this is cool walk around vlog. Love the commentary. Hey, William, good to see you, my friend. So for anybody who's new here, this is downtown Miami. We are right outside of the FTX Arena, formerly known as the American Airlines Arena. Obviously now FTX is a major cryptocurrency exchange. The Miami Heat game is currently going on. But if you look over here, this is the Paramount Tower that is all lit up in Ukrainian colors. Marty Lewis, the one and only, is here. Says hello, Tom, and good evening, everybody. Hello, Marty Lewis. Good to see you. Hope everybody had a good Tuesday. I had a pretty stressful Tuesday, but we got to keep going. The Investigator says, walks in Wall Street. Good evening. Welcome, The Investigator. It's good to see you, my friend. Jay is here. Says hi, Tom. Hey, we have Yogi Bear fan is here. What's up, Yogi Bear? And Abdullah. Welcome, Abdullah. Good to see you. So one thing that's really interesting is the rents are increasing the fastest in Sunbelt states. Now, we did see something similar to this in 2007, leading up to the financial crisis, where the hottest housing markets were in states like Florida, in states like Nevada. But obviously, we've been talking about this ad nauseum. I think it's a little bit different this time, and that is the famous last words on Wall Street. But the lending standards are a lot better as of now than in 2008. A lot of these homes are being purchased with all cash, or if not, very strong down payments. So who knows? This housing market could have some room to run, but tomorrow is the day, the FOMC meeting. We are going to find out if the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates. I think they are. People are expecting 25 basis point hike. Other people are expecting a 50 basis point hike. I guess we'll have to find out tomorrow. Mike C says, sorry the job was stressful today, Tom. That seems to be happening a lot lately. Yeah, it's just a lot of the deals that I'm working on right now are unfortunately being lost. But that's why we have to keep a full funnel. But we'll get through it. Abdullah is here. Welcome, Abdullah. Cynthia Beal, the one and only. Hope you're well. The one and only Western Mass Dave, good to see you. Hope you had a good one. And Marjan Worldwide, what is up? Matt G says, do you know about CEO for FTX? Dude's young and worth billions. Yeah, I think he's only 29 years old. I think he's a 29-year-old kid. British Gray from Tampa, Florida is joining. Welcome. Alan Wilson says, Tom, why don't you think you should have to pay property taxes? That's just how you pay for your country's services. Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't believe in property taxes because I view that as a form of wealth tax. So, especially for seniors, right? So, coming from Long Island, being born and raised there, one of the biggest issues is with senior citizens when they want to retire and they're living on a fixed income, they work their entire lives to pay off their home. But every single year they're getting hit with a property tax bill, sometimes as high as $8,000 to $9,000. And for seniors living on a fixed income, that can really eat into their budget. So what I propose, and this will probably never happen, but I think after a certain age, or if you retire, I don't think you should have to pay any property taxes at all. So let's say over the age of 65, I think that those people should be exempt from paying. More specifically, if you're living on a fixed income too, or you have some sort of medical issue. But that is my view. If you own a piece of property and then you're taxed on your wealth, I'm just not a big fan of that. I'm more of a fan of sort of like sales tax, I would say. Because you're essentially taxed everywhere you go. You know, if you go to work, you get taxes taken out from your income. If you own a home, you get taxed on your property that you already bought. And if you want to buy some food for the store, you get bashed and beaten over the head as well because you pay the sales tax. Amazing Air Show Videos says buying a real estate parcel is not owning property. It is renting it from the state indefinitely. Proof, stop paying property taxes and they take it back. Yeah, that's a good point. Andrew says, how do you fund the schools then? Yeah, so I think it's a good point. Obviously, property taxes. So in the case of Long Island, you've noticed a lot of the public schools on Long Island are very good. More specifically, Jericho, Massapequa, and even a lot of the schools in upstate New York. These tend to be some of the best schools in the country. But I think what can happen is when you have property taxes to go to fund a lot of this education, what happens is the schools suffer from bloat. So they'll pay the superintendents $300,000 a year. They'll hire a bunch of administrators. And I think a lot of that can be squandered. Look, if you're from Long Island, the property taxes are insane. If you're a single family, if you have a kid or a wife or kids or a husband and kids, many people can't afford to pay $16,000 to $17,000 property taxes. It's really bizarre. But that's a good point. That's a good point. I see both sides of the argument. Sunshine Status here says paying real estate taxes is part of the cost of owning a home. Indeed it is. I just had to pay mine recently. FredX's Alaska has property tax exemption for age 65. That I love. I agree with that. Yogi Bear fan says downtown Miami. Yeah, this is Bayside here. Cynthia Beal says, Tom, if you improve on your home, you pay even more taxes, I believe. That is true. If you do any upgrades to your home, your property taxes will go up. Santo is here. Good to see you, my friend. Robert Bankers, how about buying tax certificates, says Robert. The ABX girls, the same from being one day late with the mortgage. They will come for you and say who really owns the house. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Until you make that last mortgage payment, you'll realize. Good to see you, W. Cleveland. Terry Docker is here. Hey, Terry. Hope you had a good Tuesday. Says, hey, Tom, home property tax is low in Nevada. The casino/hotels pay quite a bit. That's interesting. Hey, John Rambo is here. Good to see you. Matthew G, welcome. Andy S says, you can keep the house though when retired. I think that's how most couples think. That's true, but I do, like, just from personal experience being on Long Island, a lot of people are just barely making it to retirement, and then to have that property tax burden, even if you do star. So a lot of the times you could do a star benefit where you get a big tax break on your home, but still, if you have to write a check for $5,000 a year, that's still a lot for some people. Hey, Arturo's here. Hey, Arturo. Arturo Flores says, hey, I am here too. Good to see you, my friend. Marjan Worldwide says, Long Island specifically is because all of the districts, the garbage districts and the fire districts and the water district, etc., etc., etc. Sebastian is here. Lemonade, welcome. Chris Beeman. Hey, Chris. Chris is from Arizona. Good to see you. Let me check if I missed. Yeah, the ABX girls, the star exemption at 65 from school tax in Long Island. Yep. So yeah, we were just talking about the star tax, but even that, it makes a little bit of a dent, but still, with star, you're still probably going to shell out like $4 or $5 grand. Sheila Neal says, question, Tom, is rent to own is really legal? Is it good to invest in rent to own? So I think that I think one of the big misconceptions out there is everybody says home ownership is the way to go and you should do home ownership no matter what. But home ownership can be quite expensive, especially if you're not well capitalized, because you got to understand, you know, if you buy a home and you're on a very, very tight budget, well, what happens if the roof starts to leak? What happens if your HVAC system goes out? You know, you have to pay for all of that, right? But when you're renting, even though you may be paying, you know, whatever it is, $1,500 to $2,000 a month, if something catastrophic happens to the property, well, your landlord is responsible for that. So I always say I always say you should buy a property when your financial means allow you to do it comfortably. So can you at least put 25% down? I'm not saying you have to put 25% down, but even if you want to, my rule of thumb is you should have the cash available to put 25% down. But if you want to leverage the heck out of it and put 3% down and then move some tenants in there to really maximize your returns, that's fine. But just make sure you're well capitalized. In an event of an emergency or something goes wrong, you have the means to pay for it. The last thing you want is when everything is good. You know, there's an old saying, it's everything is funny when you're making money, right? So you never want to be living on razor thin margins and then saying, oh, well, I could leverage the property. I can only put 3% down and move some tenants in. But what happens if we have a recession and your tenants lose their jobs? Well, now you're responsible for that rent. So I always like to have a cash buffer of at least 25%. So everybody, I think this is the, what's it called? The new music festival that's here? Or that's coming up, I believe. Michelle Henry says, I'm thinking of buying a house. That's a good reminder. Yeah, I think, so I'm not one to ever time the real estate market. Like, I just bought a property 4 months ago. I can't believe it's already been 4 months ago. But you got to make sure you do it on your terms. Don't get into these crazy bidding wars. Don't think that you have to buy a house immediately. Do it on your terms. Okay, don't overpay for a property just because all your friends are getting a house and you think you're being left behind. That's a good way to go broke. Ah, Jared Covey, you're right. So this is the setup for the Ultra Music Festival. So I'm assuming this is going to be this weekend, I believe, right? Hey, Cosmo's here. What's up, Cosmo? Good to see you, Cosmo Scary. Great stream today, Cosmo. Two Will Freedoms is wish me luck, peeps, doing taxes on Wednesday, and I have some capital gains to report. Oof. Well, that's a good thing. You know, that's a good thing. That means you made money. That's awesome. Hey, Bianca M is here, says hello. Cynthia Beal, welcome, says Tom, my family owned a small building in Manhattan. We sold 20 years ago and purchased a house in cash. It is a 2-family, so that helps with the taxes as well. But there are still repairs here and there. Yeah, I mean, 2 families are really good. You know, especially if it can cover your living situation or cover your taxes, you essentially live for free. That's awesome. Mike C, welcome Mike, says we lost about 10% of the price paid when we sold our first house. This was after owning it for 8 years. Wow. Hey, Marcos fam says, hello, my friend. Hello from São Paulo, Brazil. We have a lot of Brazilians in the chat, which is awesome. Welcome, everybody from Brazil. Jason Finch says, you should go to the bar. I don't drink alcohol, unfortunately. Cindy Foley is here, says, hey, Tom. Taxes in Texas are about 1.6%. We are the 7th highest in the United States. Yeah, Texas has extremely high property taxes. I believe Florida is up there too. I'm not sure the exact statistics, but I believe Florida has pretty high property taxes. Jason Finch says, Tom, you should go to Thailand. Western Mass Daves is named after the Ultra music label, electronic music. I think I missed some comments. Let me see. Hey, I see Jerry's here. Hey, Lee is here. This is interest-only loans, if used responsibly, is an excellent option. Good to see you, Lee. Hope you're having a good start to your week so far, my friend. Hey, the LJ Fighters is exactly, home ownership is not in the cards for everyone. Nicholas is, do you think about visiting Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, or Sao Paulo? Absolutely. I would absolutely love to do that within my lifetime. Hopefully once all this COVID stuff dies down, I'll be able to travel a little bit more. But yes, Rio de Janeiro is definitely in the cards. Alan Wilson says, seniors and property tax, the homestead exemption locks in the value of your home at the time you get the exemption, and that remains until the home is sold, says Alan. I think I missed it by a year, so it's going to kick in for me next year. Weston Mass Dave says, hey Tom, not too much wind tonight. Not too much. Today was raining on and off, but supposedly, I think the ABX girl said we're supposed to have some sort of a storm relatively soon, maybe this week. But I didn't have time to program the Nightbot, everybody. But and for some reason my phone is not letting me put the link. But it was the main CNBC headline today about rents in single-family homes are increasing at a faster pace than regular apartments. And, you know, the data is not all the way out there yet, but one of the reasons, or one of the speculations, is a lot of institutional investors now are coming into the market and not only buying single-family homes to rent, but also building single-family homes to rent as well. So pretty interesting stuff. Matt G says, where in the country would you like to buy property? I was looking at Denver, Colorado. I'm really interested in Denver. But what about you, Matt? So obviously I'm a New Yorker. So definitely at some point in my life, I want to own property in New York, just because that's where my family is and all that. I just don't have the means to do it yet responsibly. So I think if I could start off with a smaller investment property that I could manage here, I could really learn to get my hands dirty, how to fix things on my own, and then I could maybe upgrade to a multi-family unit, maybe in New York, later on down the line. But for me, I always like to start small. I don't really want to jump in and do a massive deal. Because if I screw up something, I'd rather have the mess up be relatively small where I could correct it. But I guess you got to start somewhere. Cosmo Scary is right in the city of Denver or in the mountains? Probably in one of the suburbs of Denver. I think I want to have a little bit of diversity, but what about you, Cosmo? What about you? Ah, there we are. Photos from around New York found the article. So check it out. So the article states that single-family rent prices are soaring, led by homes in the Sun Belt. I think single-family home rental prices are up about 12% year over year. We've seen slight deceleration in apartments, but the single family home market has remained relatively strong in terms of rents. For whatever reason, I think it's just because during the pandemic, it taught people, like, I don't really want to live on top of one another. I'd rather have my own house, my own place. The kids can run around in the backyard. But that's just my speculation. What do you guys think? Western Mass Dave's is a beautiful choice, Tom. Beautiful mountains around Denver. Hey, After 40 is here, out and about. Good to see you out and about. Says you can always rent out to foreign. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Out and about. Hope everything is going well in Toronto. So Toronto, Canada is also another really hot housing market too. I'm not too well versed in the Canadian housing market, but supposedly home prices in Toronto and the suburbs of Toronto are really, really expensive. Lemonade says Denver and not Washington State. I haven't traveled to Washington State, but Denver, I think Denver is maybe my top 3 markets. I'm very intrigued by Denver. Two Wheel Freedom says, I know people in Australia and Canada who pretty much gave up on owning homes. Sad times. Yeah, that is quite depressing because, you know, I was reading a study, and I think this came out of Harvard Business School. Well, the wind is really picking up. Let's see if we can duck in here. So I read a study at a Harvard Business School, and they said out of all the millionaires in America, the number one way that people or families become millionaires is through the equity in their homes or through home ownership. So if we continue to see this culling of the middle class, and especially a lot of younger people not being able to afford homes, it's going to be harder and harder and harder for young people like myself to build wealth. So I think it's a big problem, but I'm not too sure about the solution. What do you guys think? Hey, Otto is here. This is Tom. New findings from Capital on Tap say Vancouver is right behind New York and San Francisco when it comes to the cost of building a home. Yeah, I mean, so Otto, I think it's because everybody wants to be there, right? Everybody wants to be in New York. Everybody wants to be in a nice city like San Francisco. But, I mean, we've been seeing migration out of those cities to, you know, Texas, to Denver, to Miami. Even some cities in Arizona, too, are booming. Hey, Jonathan C's here. Hey, Jonathan. Good to see you. Lemonade says, Tom, check out Washington State if you get a chance. I will check that out. Hey, Uptown NYC says, why are rents still going up in Miami? Are New Yorkers still moving down there? Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen that trend. But here's another thing I'd like to note. Everybody says, oh, all of New York is moving to Miami only in 2022. And now, I mean, that's been happening forever. Like, a lot of New Yorkers have second and third homes in Miami anyway. But I think we're actually seeing a lot of foreign investment. Like, a lot of people from Argentina are coming here. So I think the population growth, and also there's really nowhere to build here because it's all marshland. So the homes that are here are pretty much the homes that we have. Hey, Nicholas Island Boy says, Tom, I'm a realtor in New Hampshire. The struggle is real. Shout out to Lightyear for telecom procurement. Shout out Lightyear for telecom procurement. Very cool. So Nicholas, how's the real estate market in New Hampshire? I actually heard that New Hampshire is one of the hottest housing markets. Sebastian is here, says, hey Tom. Sparks Carnival says, airlines had a good day today. Will it continue? I don't really cover the airline stocks. I think the airline stocks are very dependent on oil prices and things like that. So I don't really look at them, so I don't know, to be honest. Hey, Destructionist says, happy Tuesday, Tom. No skateboard tonight? No skateboard tonight. We may not have it for another week or so. I'm just totally crushed with work, like insanely crushed. So speaking of real estate prices, check this out, everybody. So this is the new Aston Martin residences that's actually right down here. So one of the penthouses is $59 million. That's insane. So $59 million for 8.5 bedrooms. No, 7 bedrooms and 8.5 bathrooms. I mean, I don't even know what I would do with that many bathrooms. You can also get 5 bedrooms, 5.5 bathrooms for 5.9 million. That's insane. We may walk past this building tonight on the stream, but this is what it's going to look like when it's fully complete. Right here. Two-wheel freedoms is one possible solution. Tax non-primary residences heavily. The number of homes held by investors is huge. Make it less profitable, and they'll list them and move to another asset class, maybe. Interesting point, but I'm just not really for I'm just against wealth tax in general, but I think it could be worth exploring. It could be worth exploring. I'm open to it. Yeah, this is for a lower price. Beijing Charlie says, has the current situation have impact on your work? Very little. So a lot of my clients are in New York, but luckily a lot of them are actually buying additional businesses here in Southern Florida, mainly because a lot of retirees come to Florida, and I mainly sell into hospitals and nursing homes and home healthcare agencies. So there's a lot of M&A activity in the home healthcare space right now. Hey, RJ says, I'm happy my $800,000 valued house. It's phenomenal, man. Jane. So Jane M is like, Tom, 8.5 bathrooms. What the heck do they eat? I know. Like, what do you do with 8.5 bathrooms? It's insane. Shazad 2006 says, how can you make money out of $300,000? You can make a lot of money out of that. If you have $300,000 in liquid cash, taxes paid on it, within, over 50 years, you're probably going to be worth probably 10 million. Michael B says, wealth tax is just taxing assets. We all have assets. Agreed. So this is the financial center here. Hey, Javier, S95, good to see you. Yeah, Javier, N95, you're right about the traffic. The traffic is insane here. It's almost as bad as New York. Nicholas Island Boy says, it's great if you're a listing agent, horrible if you're a first-time buyer. It's too hard to compete with all the out-of-state tech buyers. All my listings have been cash buyers. So Nicholas Island Boy, I think that is extremely important to pay attention to his comment, right? So a lot of the times on the stream, this is why I like doing these streams, because we get to hear from a lot of different perspectives. We hear from real estate agents in Florida, really all over the United States. And a lot of times we have this debate on the stream where we're like, the housing market is going to crash. It's going to be another 2008 moment. But here's the difference. Did everybody pay attention to the Island Boy's comment? Something interesting. He said something interesting. The majority of buyers are all cash. How can we have another 2008 moment if everybody, or let me not say everybody, but a lot of people are overpaying, quote unquote, overpaying for these homes, but they're all buying cash. The issue with 2008, as we talked about on the stream yesterday, is that a lot of these people were not qualified for a mortgage. So they were giving out mortgages to people who had very low incomes, low credit scores. They couldn't afford the mortgage, and they were not fixed rate mortgages. These were all adjustable rate loans. So when the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, they had massive balloon payments. So it's a very different market now. And I know you're never supposed to say it's different this time, but if everybody is well capitalized, if the lending standards or the underwriting standards at a lot of the mortgage companies are better, how could we have a crash? I don't know. We still could, but I say it's very unlikely. If we do have a pullback, it'll probably be like 15% max because the demand is there. I don't know. Yeah, photos from around New York says market indices are down and oil is up. Javier S95 says, walks in Wall Street. Everyone and their grandma want to move to Miami, so it's not good for the locals. I know. But I just moved here, so I apologize. I guess I'm one of those people, but I love your city, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. The weather is great, and the people have been extremely nice to me. But Javier, I do agree with you on the traffic. The traffic is just, it's almost like you have to be here to understand what I'm talking about. The traffic is insane. And that's why I think Elon Musk wants to build one of those tunnels with the Boring Company, because the traffic here is just sick. Matthew P is here, says, evening old Tom, old chap. Good to see you, Matthew. Welcome. Lewis is here. John L says, recessions. Good to see you, John L. Javier says, I used to live in Homestead and worked at Miami International. Took me 3 hours from Homestead to Miami International. Dude, that's sick. So Javier, I tend to take the, I live probably about 12 miles north of here. If I take the bus back, if I take the 3 bus back at around like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., it usually only takes me 40 minutes. But if I take that bus during rush hour, it's gonna almost double the commute. The commute time, that is. Cosmo Scary says, Tom, have you taken the Bright Line train yet? Not yet. I want to do that though. So this is the very massive Whole Foods here. Extremely expensive here too, by the way. Mike Simmons is here, says, is the water table too shallow in Miami for tunnels? So Mike, I thought the same thing. Because to Mike's point, here in Miami, the majority of, I guess, I'm not sure what to call it, the bedrock is all limestone, so it's very porous. But then again, I don't really want to argue with Elon Musk, because he hires people that are extremely, extremely smart, much smarter than me. So he has the best engineers in the world working on this stuff. So supposedly they sent a proposal to the city of North Miami Beach for a tunnel that goes underground all the way to Sunny Isles Beach. So I'm not sure if that's ever going to be built, but they did send the proposal. I don't know what sort of the process is, but look, anything to innovate and reduce traffic, I'm all for it, but I'm just not sure it's going to work, to your point. Hey, Paranormal Witness Girl says, I don't know how it's going to work a tunnel during hurricane season and the sea coming in. Look, I don't know either, but I mean, if Elon Musk says it can be done and it passes all the regulations, I mean, who knows? Hey, Brad's Brain is here, says, Tom, did you see that Musk challenged Putin to a fight? Winner takes Ukraine. I did see that, and it was so bizarre that I just went back to work. I couldn't believe it. Lucas is here, says, how chic Miami. Good to see you, Lucas. Sunshine State says, can't see a crash coming in real estate. Inventory is too low. Ed is here, says, hello, Tom. Did you hear about the end of petrodollar? Any thoughts? Ed, yes. So we were talking about that a little bit at the beginning of the stream. I forget who brought it up, but supposedly Saudi Arabia and China are in talks to stop pricing oil in dollars and price it in native Chinese currency, which is a massive, huge red flag, very dangerous for the dollar. And it seems like it's just very interesting how a lot of the world leaders are testing the United States now. You have the Russia-Ukraine thing. Now you have people threatening the petrodollar. It could get very ugly. Very, very ugly. But we'll see. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think? XOXX Bob says, Tom, the Port of Miami tunnel is over a mile long and is 130 feet deep and costs $1 billion. Wow. Hey, Ken Dryer's here. Hey, Ken. How are you? Al Baker is here. Says, I heard they want to do a tunnel from the airport to the seaport. Hey, Ron Metro TV says, do credit companies face any liability for giving out credit to unqualified clients? Well, they should, but in 2008, all the banks got bailed out. Because in 2008, essentially what happened is Wall Street was collateralizing all of these products. So they were taking all these mortgages, bundling them, and selling them off to mostly international banks. So Deutsche Bank still held the most toxic derivatives portfolio of all time. And that still is a disaster, which we could talk about on another stream. But essentially what these bankers were doing is, even if the buyer was so unqualified, they would take the mortgage, they would bundle it together with all other junk mortgages and sell them as collateralized debt obligations. And when everybody defaulted at the same time, when interest rates went up, because most of these buyers had adjustable rate mortgages, it crashed the economy. But now, I mean, the lending standards are so tight, it's insane. You have to have at least a 750 credit score. You got to have a really stable job, a good income. So I don't know. A lot of that stuff has been fixed since 2008. So I don't really see a mass default type moment. But look, I could be wrong, but that's just my viewpoints on it. Static IC says, Tom, here in Vegas, the Californians are buying everything up in cash. So the demand is up and houses are overpriced. Oh my God. In our neighborhood bought their home for $385K. It's now worth $580. Oh my God. Yeah, so I mean, to Static's point, it's all cash. It's insane. Photos around New York says, walks in Wall Street. What are your thoughts on the overall economy, not just the markets? I think the economy is not doing too good right now. Because you have this massive divide. There's such a divergence between the top 10% of income earners and everybody else. And I think that was really exacerbated by the pandemic, when everybody that had the ability or the luxury of working remote, you know, these are the people that got to save on a lot of expenses, like commuting expenses. 9 times out of 10, they actually probably got a raise. But people that have jobs that require to be in office or in hospitality, these are the people who really got hammered. So you've had a culling of middle-class jobs, and you have this crazy disparity between the middle class and the upper class. So I think the economy is very unbalanced and is only working for the top 10%. Hey, Pacific Desert Raid, good to see you, my friend. Says, hey, how you doing, Tom? I'm doing good. How are you? Cynthia Beal says, Tom, do you happen to know how to get an accurate appraisal of a home in New York City? I don't. How to get an accurate appraisal? Is that a trick question? Well, good to see you, Cynthia. So I've been hearing stories that, so I'll tell you a quick story. One of my buddies went to buy a house. He was going to buy it in all cash. The deal fell through because the seller took another offer that was above asking price, and then that deal fell through because the house wouldn't appraise. That's how crazy things are getting.
Everyone's got their shit though, right? It's just so...
Yeah, Mike Simmons says hire an appraiser. Yeah, I would say just hire an appraiser. There's like unethical activities going on, which is possible in New York, or really anywhere. John L says, Tom, if mortgage interest rates go up, as Goldman Sachs says, 7-8%, housing prices will decrease. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I mean, I hope so. You know, John, do you remember, well, I think now that 10-year treasury yield is well over 2% now. So mortgage rates are probably what, around 4% for a 30-year fixed? CS is here. Hey, CS. Says I should have knew it. It would be an increase. Static says, where is all the cash coming from? Well, we printed a ton of it. And all of that cash makes its way into the too few hands. But everybody, I just want to warn everyone, it's going to be a short stream tonight. My battery is on 10%. So if you enjoyed the stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We will be going live tomorrow, and we will be talking about the FOMC meeting. So you are not going to want to miss that stream. But we'll stream it till the phone dies a little bit more.
Oh, I have your...
XOXX Bob's is Tom 2008 Ninja loans were no. Jobs asset loans for some home buyers. Hey, Randy the Machine says, as a Florida homeowner, I'm more worried about homeowners insurance more than taxes, since taxes with homestead exemption are capped at 3% a year. So that's actually a good point. So Randy the Machine, my homeowner's insurance is insane. Really, really insane. But obviously that's because we have hurricanes here and things like that. But you make a fantastic point. My homeowner's insurance is disgustingly high. Hey, Skinwalker's here. This is all the static and data show Americans are prospering under the Biden administration. All the statistics and data showing. What statistics and what data set are you pulling from? I think you could prosper under any president. It doesn't matter Democrat or Republican. You could prosper, but I think ever since 2008, when we really went full bore on quantitative easing, it's been clear who the real winners were. And I think it's, the 1%. Because you got to understand something. The people who own these assets, right? A lot of the people who own assets are the 1%ers. And when you print all of this money, there's a direct correlation between the Fed's balance sheet, the money supply, and inflation. So the more money you print and give to people, it's just going to make the prices of assets increase even more. And rich people, what do? Well, they lend against these assets. They borrow against these assets to do what? To buy new assets, to buy more income producing assets. When you're a middle class or a poor person, you can't do that, unfortunately, or at least it's harder. That's a good point. So we're going to make a right here, and then unfortunately I'm going to have to end it. But man, this was such a good stream. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of interesting conversation here. Randy says, one bad hurricane and the sky's the limit with the current roofing scammers. True. Very true. Hey, unlimited stimulus is here. This is all the money printing started in 2008. Feeling the pain now. Ron Metro TV says, what are your thoughts on the job market before the end of 2022? So I actually wrote a piece about this in the Behind the Street newsletter. I'll be sending it out tomorrow. So if you guys want to read it, if you type !news, N-E-W-S, in the chat, it's going to drop a link to the newsletter. I write it every Monday. I send it out, but this week I got a little bit backtracked. But I've been saying, you got to watch out working for a company that doesn't generate cash flow and that doesn't generate any earnings. So for example, look what happened with Peloton. They had to lay off thousands of people because during a bull market, these companies could just sell stock, bring in the cash to pay their employees to do nothing, right? But during a recession, all of these big high beta growth tech companies and all of these SPACs, they're gonna have to lay off a ton of people because they can't sell stock. Their stock prices are down so much. You saw that with Peloton, and I think you're gonna continue to see that with a lot of these frothy companies, especially more of the special purpose acquisition companies. So it's very important to pay attention to the market, not only for your portfolio, but also for your career opportunities as well. Because if you work for a Peloton and you're like, well, we're trading at 1 million times sales, well, that's probably not sustainable. And when your stock gets hammered, the executives sell their stock, they make millions, and who do they lay off? They lay off you. So you got to be careful. Let me see how much battery I have. Ooh, 4%. Everybody, I appreciate you joining. Thank you so much for watching tonight. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, You could follow at Walks in Wall Street. We oftentimes have good conversation on Twitter. But I will see everybody tomorrow. Please make it a great week. Already the middle of the week. So Abdullah, thank you so much. Emilio J, thank you. Ruby Falcone, Sally, Brian, Cynthia Beal, MF Craig, thank you. Pacific Desert Raid, Sparks Carnival, thank you so much. Al Baker, Skinwalker, have a good rest of your night. Thank you, Skinwalker. Ron Metro TV, I appreciate it. Cindy Foley, Brian, Beijing Charlie, Arturo, appreciate you. Two Wheel Freedom, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for subscribing. So everybody, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm gonna have that newsletter out to you tomorrow, I promise. I apologize for it being late. I've just been getting crushed at work. I have not been having a good time about it at work. But things are gonna get better. Remain optimistic. And to the mighty bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there's always a bull market somewhere and you just need to know where to look. So I'll see everybody right back here in the Magic City tomorrow.